Hi there, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever the time of the day that you are watching this Zoom recording. Hi there, welcome and thank you so much for being present here with us today as we engage in an essential conversation around preparing for scholarships. That's right, college is accessible, college is attainable to you, but there are some things that we can start to do now that will align you with reaching those career goals and aspirations that you have. And so let's talk about scholarships. And here we have with us today, Lori Dunstan, VP of Global Corporate Giving with CHUBB. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Hi there,
Thank you
Lori.
and good morning. Hi.
And we have no stranger to the Berkeley Institute, Ryan Robin Perinchief, who is a Rhodes Scholar and Berkeley alumni. And can now I add law pupil to that? Can I officially add
Yes, you
that?
can.
Yes.
Yes, and
Can I
hello
also
everyone.
So thank you so much, Ryan, for also being a part of the conversation. So we have persons that are able to provide intel, Lori, from the perspective of a corporation that grants scholarships and goes through the application and interview process. And Ryan, as a former student of the Berkeley Institute who has applied and has waited for those responses and has been successful with gaining pretty hefty scholarships to be able to support his endeavors. So please feel free to introduce yourselves, in addition to what I've already said, just to give a sense of who you are and what has brought you to the world of scholarships.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, Ryan, I'll go.
Sure.
My name is Lori Dunstan. As Alicia pointed out, I am the VP for Global Corporate Giving, but locally I am the chair for the CHUBB Charitable Foundation here in Bermuda. And that is where I first got my entrance into the world of scholarships and meeting high school students. CHUBB has a couple of scholarships that we offer. And they're both either high school students, Bermuda college students across the board. So I have been very lucky for the past 20 plus years to have worked with and met a lot of high school kids here, and worked with them through the process of scholarship applications, interviews. I've also worked with ABIC, the Association of Bermuda International Companies, and supported their scholarship programming and scholarship committee selections. And also just recently I volunteered with that Knowledge Quest. They're one of my favorite scholarship organizations, and have worked with them this past scholarship season in reviewing and vetting almost 150 scholarship applications. So it is part of my job. It is also one of the things that I'm most passionate about, which is making education accessible. And it is one of the things I'm very privileged to be able to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your immense knowledge on this conversation. We welcome you. And Ryan, tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. So as you know, I attended the Berkeley Institute. I graduated in 2014. After that, I did a year in Brazil with Rotary Exchange, which was also an opportunity that Berkeley facilitated. And after that, I went to law school at Durham University in the UK. And that was on scholarship. So I think we'll probably get into that conversation a bit later about what types of degrees give different scholarships, but there are definitely, and I benefited from quite a few scholarships throughout my educational journey. Conyers, which is where I work now, has given me grants to help support my education, as well as Renaissance Re, Bank of Bermuda Foundation, just like what you all are doing now, which is meeting with my student services counselor and facilitating some of those applications. And then after I finished my law degree, I had the opportunity to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, which actually funds at least 2 years at Oxford University. And so that's where I got my master's degree in public policy. And then after that, I relocated back home to Bermuda just about a year ago now, and I'm doing my law pupillage. So I'm looking forward to talking a bit about what types of scholarships are out there, how we can get them, how we can start thinking early, like what we're doing now, and just having a conversation on how to put your best foot forward.
Boy, what a journey you've been on. And I definitely would love the conversation that will come out of just the process that you've gone through in applying and waiting Boy, thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
Lori, talking about scholarships, what have been some of the most lucrative scholarships that you've come across? And then what might be the average amount that you kind of see come forth for most scholarships that are granted?
Sure. And a lot of that, I think, is dependent upon your area of study. What are you looking to study will drive a lot of where go the most lucrative or the larger dollars coming in, right? There are a significant number of law scholarships, as Ryan alluded to. There's more than 25 just on the BermudaScholarships.com site, and that probably doesn't cover the broader selection of individual corporate scholarships that are out there. In my industry, you know, as Ryan points out, Renreach got a phenomenal scholarship. AXA XL has a full 4 years, fully funded tuition, flights, everything, scholarships. So those are
Wow.
pretty lucrative areas that you can look at. They also aren't just, when I say in our industry, they're not just for insurance and risk management. Those scholarships will cover everything from law to accounting to finance to marketing to HR. If that degree can be used within our industry, you are free to apply for those scholarships. So we keep those very broad, but they're also very scholarships. BFIS and ABIC combined do have a very strong giving program when it comes to scholarship and bursary grants. I think between they probably do in excess of 25 to 30 scholarships annually. What they do is they are giving $15,000 a year for 2 years in your journey, in your academic journey, which is very good. They also provide mentors, and they provide you with a connection in your industry to also help you as you go through your college program.
Wow, those are some really hefty scholarships that are available. And this next follow-up question may be in line with what you just talked about, but what careers do you see get the highest volume? Would you say those that are in business and the fields that you mentioned, such as law and marketing, do those tend to have the largest volume of scholarships?
They do, absolutely. And again, I refer to BermudaScholarships.com because I think that is a primary source for students to start looking at what scholarships are available. It's technically a one-stop shop where a student can go to, pin down what their areas of interest are, and you will get a filtered list of where the scholarship. It's a great source to start with, but when you start looking across there are more than 25 scholarships available in law specific. If you start to broaden it out again to those that are what I would deem in our industry that include law, that number of scholarship goes up again, right? So these industries, the insurance industry, legal, business, finance, accounting, some of these industries will see the larger numbers of scholarships available.
Okay, and one of the signature tracks that we have here at the Berkeley Institute focus on business and finance. So there will be many of our students that their ears are perking up, and their parents and guardians as well, hearing that career channel tends to get a good lump of the scholarships. And Ryan, what can students be doing now to align themselves with success and acquiring scholarships in the future?
Well, I mean, I think this recording is a big part of it, right? Because you want to know what's out there and you want to sort of get a heads up as to what you might have to do when it comes time to apply. So I definitely think looking at these types of things early is key. I remember using free periods when I was at Berkeley to make phone calls and start looking around, get my resume and my applications together. So making sure that when the time comes to apply, you're not scrambling and racing around. I think that's definitely key. And then beyond just the application process, I think it's good to start networking. That doesn't have to mean that you're going out to these big events and, smiling and standing in the corner and trying to, reach out to people directly. It could also mean just one-on-ones. It could mean connecting with people in the industry. Maybe you have some names that you're aware of people in the community. It might be family or friends who you know, who can connect you with someone, or it might just be you reaching out one-on-one directly through a company website or something like that. Establishing those key networks and having sort of champions and mentors is something that's really going to help as well. And then, of course, academically, we already know what we're supposed to be doing as far as being consistent and striving for academic excellence. But I think it's also important to point out not all scholarships are targeting the quote unquote high flyers, right? There are a lot of scholarships out there for people who are persevering, who are very determined, who may have certain circumstances that don't allow them to get those top GPA or top academic scores. And so I would encourage you as well to start looking around. It might be your church, it might be other community organizations, it might be parish councils. So there are other opportunities out there that you can start connecting with and reaching out to, even if that's just community service or forming those relationships early.
Yes, really, really good counsel. And Lori, similar question. What specific extracurricular activities, community service activities in particular, might students be doing now to make themselves marketable when it's time to apply for scholarships?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because that is an actually really interesting question. I know high schools have a requirement for community service. And I think what we tend to see is students making sure that activities that are meaningful to them, right? Let's not just go and tick the box. I need 20 hours. I'm going to go do 20 hours. It has zero impact on me. Find something, if you can, that meets your requirement for your hours. Number one, that we know that that's a must, but also find something you're interested in. And if you're loving that you're interested in, that may also align with your career aspirations or what you're thinking about wanting to undertake, then that's a win-win. Like if you think you want to study veterinary medicine, go and volunteer at the SPCA as a starting point. BAMS also has a great volunteer initiative. You can even do work shadows at some of the vet clinics. They allow you to do that. There are so many nonprofits out there that will offer such a broad range of exposure to career opportunities that you can go and volunteer at. And I think that's how you can best align yourself through that.
Yes, and thank you for reinforcing that. That's a conversation that we've been having during S1, is not just looking for chasing hours, but chasing quality connections, quality opportunities that align you with your career curiosities, or allow you to say, okay, I'm interested in finance. Let's give this a shot. Ooh, this does not work for me. Maybe I need to be volunteering as a county striper instead. Maybe I'm directed towards a medical or human services. So using these community service and extracurricular opportunities to get a sense of what might work well for them in terms of exploring various interests. So thank you. That's really, really helpful to know. And when you are looking through the applications, are you looking more so for the type of placement or the number of hours or both? Because that's a question that students often ask as well.
We're not overly concerned about the number of hours. What we do look for is the students' involvement with their partner support groups, with the nonprofit that they're working with, whichever organization. Listen, there are some great clubs out there. Go join a community club with kids, support the kids. We want the student applicant to be able to connect the dots for us as to why they did it, not just to get their hours.
Thank you so much for that. And Ryan, talking about resume writing, you talked about how you would take your lunch breaks or your free periods to kind of get things organized, right? What did you do in creating your resume that might have allowed your resume in particular to stand out from against the big pile of papers, stacks of applications that were coming in?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Lori might be able to help with this as well when it comes to evaluating resumes, but I can definitely give it a go. I think actually Lori alluded to this when she was talking about community service and doing things that you like. So one thing that I think is key on a resume or any profile is you sort of have to craft your story. When people are looking at a resume, they want to get an idea of who is this person? What do they stand for? What do they represent? What are they about? So it's okay to have a wide variety of experiences. At your age, you may have a resume that has a whole bunch of different jobs, or, you might be packing groceries, you might be doing something for you. Demonstrate you have a wide variety of experiences, but it would be helpful to have some sort of summary or something that people can look at to say, this is what this person is passionate about. So for example, in my context, I did law because I wanted to understand how society works and how things operate and why things are the way that they are, even though it has a variety of different experiences, which may not necessarily connect in an obvious way by
Mm-hmm.
adding that sort of summary at the top to say, this is what I'm about. I'm passionate about social justice, or I want to understand, I want to know how things function. You can see how with different opportunities and different things on your resume, people can get a sense of, okay, who is this person and what do they care about? So I think when it comes to making your resume stand out, and it's the same logic or any other essay question you're writing, people want to know who you are and sort of what path you're on. So try and find a way to connect those different things and of what you care about.
I love that. So craft your story, ask yourself, what is your why? Why are you
Exactly.
moving towards the pathway that you're considering? And if you don't know yet, that's okay. That's the benefit of all these experiences, right? It might help to fill in and inform the blanks of those questions you might have as to why you might be interested in being a nurse, or why you might be interested in law, or why you're a teacher, or why a veterinarian, or why a psychologist. Start to ask yourself the why. Beautiful, beautiful. And Lori, from your perspective, as Ryan alluded, as one that reviews and processes those resumes, what are you looking for?
And I'm going to piggyback right off of what Ryan just stated. When I get an application, while your GPA is probably going to be that thing that jumps out at me first, it is not the most important factor. What is more important to us, and when we're looking at applications, is exactly what Ryan said, the narrative. The narrative for us tells us more about you as an applicant than those numbers do. The numbers are just simply a factor of sometimes really good genes and you're just a really smart kid. But I want to know that your story, that you can share who you are with us. Be real with us. Don't tell us what we want to hear. Tell us what you want us to know. Tell us what you want us to know about you. That is where the differentiator lies in looking at our applications. I'm going to get 60 fun kid. You got to stand out. And you're going to stand out because guess what? There's a lot of smart kids, and you're going to be on equal footing with all of those smart kids and those really strong kids. But I want to know you, and that's going to come through in the story that you tell me, right? To your point as well, you don't always have to know where you're going, but you kind of got to know why something that is piquing your interest. Is there something that has happened that's just inherent in who you are that is taking you on that path? That's what we want to see.
Wonderful. My goodness, such rich feedback. And talking about the process of writing resumes, the process of application. Ryan, what was it like for you just to begin? For some students, when we talk about scholarships, you literally feel in the chest tightness. You feel the anxiety, you feel the overwhelm, you feel the fear of failure, you feel the fear of rejection. So what was it like for that process? And even from a mental health perspective, how did you cope with the weight and any rejection and any fear of what happens if I fail, or perceived failure, right?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely a tiring and difficult process. I won't lie about that. It's made a lot easier with things like Bermuda scholarships. There are definitely tools out there to help streamline it. But make no mistake, you have to put time into it. It's just like when people are applying for jobs, right? It's not just clicking buttons. You do have to put in the work. And so that's where, like we talked about, starting early comes into place. It makes it a lot easier if you know before you start what's required. Have a checklist, know the documents that you have to get. I know when I was applying for scholarships, you had to go to immigration, you had to get some sort of certificate of Bermuda status, you needed something from your school to say how long you're in school. So these are things that take time. They're not that difficult if you know what you have to do. When it's rushing and you're scatterbrained and you're also panicking because you're not sure about the scholarships, and then you're navigating graduation. So what I would say, start early, take those few minutes to write out an outline of what you're going to need, and just take it step by step, because it is a process that you're going to have to put a lot of thought into. You have to write your essays, you have to write your personal statements. So you can't really get past that, but it makes it a lot easier if you're organized and you think about it early. And find some other people to help you with it. You're going to need that. when it comes to sort of rejection and dealing with disappointment and the weight, I mean, nobody gets everything.
Mhm.
But you have to keep trying anyway, right? Like, I think we were talking about this at one of the recent career events as well. At your age, it's the best time to fail. It's the best time for disappointment. And I don't want you to look at it as, if I don't get a scholarship, to give up or be discouraged. Obviously, you're going to have that feeling of sadness. Not everybody gets selected. As Lori mentioned, she may have to pick one applicant out of 80. And so you're not always going to get that scholarship. But I think even if you don't, the process is worth it because you're learning about yourself. You're
Yes.
understanding a bit more who you are. You're
Mhm.
developing yourself for the next rejection, which is going to come as well. You're going to deal with that in life. And everybody who's listening to this podcast is young enough to fail because you can always come make or break you. Like you may feel sad in that moment, you may feel disappointed in that moment, but where there's a will, there's a way. Keep trying, keep pushing. There are people who apply for scholarships, go sit through the interview, don't get selected, and then have applied 3 or 4 more times and then got selected, and it was all worth it in the end. Similarly, you might not get selected and then you have somebody else that was selected that has a different opportunity that they take, and you were second on that list, right? So you may not know the outcome, you may not understand all of what happens behind the scenes, but you can put your best foot forward and have a positive attitude towards it. And when you do have that moment of rejection or you feel like you failed, just embrace it. Everybody's going to do that in life, and you shouldn't let that stop you because it really is only the beginning. So, be organized, have an idea ahead and upfront of what you're going to need. That makes it a lot more stress-free. And then as you go through the process, just enjoy it because you're learning about yourself every step of the way, regardless of whether you get that scholarship in the end or not.
This is the best time for failure. This is the best time to take big, daring steps. Really good takeaways. On the topic of daring steps, the interview, the scholarship interview process, that's something that comes up for students. Lori, tell me, are all scholarships, do they all require interviews? And for those that do, what is the interview process like?
I do believe that if you are shortlisted, every shortlisted candidate will get a face-to-face or a Zoom interview. And I don't envy the kids having to undertake these face-to-face interviews because it's daunting. I mean, you're walking into a room where you're now going to be opposite 5 to 7 people that you've never met before, and they kind of hold that answer in their hands, right? So to Ryan's point, this is such a great learning opportunity for you to get out there, put yourself out, get every single one, but the opportunity to sit in front of those that can share with you some information is going to be a positive. We do in-person interviews. We do in-person interviews every time because it's where you're going to get to know that student best. And the first thing I tell a student after they walked in that door and sat down with us, first of all, I tell them congratulations, because if you are shortlisted out of 80 and we only interviewed 5 candidates this year, we're just wrapping up our process. We interviewed 5 candidates out of 80. So if you're on that short list, kudos to you. That is one heck of an accomplishment, right? But then I tell them, by the way, then I put those applications to the side. That's what got you the seat at this table, right? That's what gets you in the door. The rest is now a completely clean slate. Now we start the conversation. And we do have standardized questions because we need to be an equal playing field for everybody coming in the door, that we've got the questions. But we do try to keep it conversational. We do ask a lot of questions, but they're not questions that will have been on that application form, by the way, because now's the time we want to get to know you, and we want to get to know why you're here, and we want to learn who you are. We try to keep it as light as we can. Again, we know it's not that easy for everybody, but we do try to encourage. We do try to keep it, as less painful as it can be. And we know it is a difficult time. But we also then, by the way, give the students time to ask us questions, right? So this becomes very open dialogue, and they can ask us as many questions as they wish as well. So I have a feeling, and again, I've done several for ABEC and recently with another organization, but the process is pretty similar. Come in the door, let's have a conversation. Let's get to know you. Let's get to understand where you are, what you're looking to do. And through that application process, we've learned what we needed to know from a high level. From the interview process, we're going to get to know you as the person, not just what came in on paper.
So that's a really good takeaway. Students, did you hear that? There's an opportunity for you to ask questions. So whether you're one that likes to have deep reflection, where you come in with questions that you might have, or whether you're more of a spontaneous and fluid conversationalist, move in whatever way works for you, but be prepared to ask some questions in return. And in terms of the questions that might come up in the interview process, what might some of those questions sound like, and how could students prepare for them?
First and foremost, the first thing you can prepare for is know who you're coming to meet. Whoever you are asking for scholarship funding for, please make sure that you know who they are, know the company, know what they do. If you're able to find out a little bit about what that scholarship, what the genesis for that scholarship might be, whether it's in honor of a former, industry stalwart, find out why they're giving you that award. That is very important. The questions are everything from, the typical, who do you see in your life as somebody that personifies leadership qualities, and why? Doesn't have to be a family member, it can be anybody across the board. We do ask the typicals, is there, explain to me one of the failures that you've come across in your life and how you have managed to work through those challenges. We ask students to simply tell me why you chose the university you went to or are going to, and why you have chosen that university. And some of these questions are really just to start getting you to open up, and to talk and to just generalize. And then we actually start diving deeper into more personable questions. Okay, you said you want to be an actuary. Well, that's a pretty refined field. What is it that drove you and wanted you to? It may just be a love of maths. It may be a love of solving puzzles. It may be because we have family members involved. We really start to drill down once we get one or two answers from you into questions that aren't even on the board, by the way. So we start to enjoy that conversational piece, but we do hit the standards. Why are you going to the university? Why did you choose your career? Who is a leader in your field or in your area of life that you look up to? Sort of the general questions.
Okay, and how early can students start applying to scholarships? And must they already be accepted into a college or university for them to be able to apply?
I think on the whole, if I refer back to BermudaScholarships.com, they open in January, and the majority of applications will close between April 30th and June 1st, typically. Okay. There are some smaller, more unique scholarships that are still open now, and they're available for applying. But I think on the whole, there's about probably the first 4 to 5 months of the year where scholarships open. You've got a pretty good stretch of time there in order to, as Ryan said, do your homework, figure out what is needed, get in there, look at it, get that checklist, right? One of the things that we look for is, can you follow instructions? Did you take that checklist and deliver to me every single thing that I asked for? And that's really important. So start early. You got a long time. BermudaScholarships.com, every scholarship, has a contact name. If you have a question, call them, email them. I get dozens of questions between January and April 30th that I am happy to answer, because I'd rather answer them and get you better situated to get into that process than have you miss a whole bunch of things that exclude you immediately. Pick up the phone, email. You'd be surprised how many people are really eager to answer your questions.
Okay, really, really, really good feedback here. So Ryan, once you went through the process and you found out that you were successful, what was that feeling like for you? Was it worth the hassle? Was it worth all of the steps and the processes that you went through?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I remember I came to Berkeley a few years ago because I was asked to help motivate some of the students who were not so passionate about applying for scholarships. And I told them, hey, you guys have got to look at it this way. You were getting paid to go to school. And I know for a lot of students, your parents are going to make you go to uni anyway, or they're going to make you apply at least. Obviously it's not for everyone, but for those who are planning to go to university, you're already going to do it. So why not get paid, especially if you get a really big scholarship that covers, like Lori said, your airfare and your travel, it makes your university experience so much more enjoyable if you know that you have that financial backing. So I would say yes, of course it was worth all of the hassle. It was very rewarding. And even if you don't get the scholarship, one opportunity can always lead to another, because even in that interview panel, you've made new contacts. People are
That's
going to
right.
remember you years down the line.
That's
You may
right.
apply for a scholarship 2 or 3 years from now. And I remember even, for example, when I applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, this would have been what, 5 years after I applied for the scholarships when I graduated from Berkeley initially. And there were people around that scene who were like, I remember you when you applied for this scholarship X amount of
Wow.
years ago. And I didn't know who they were, but they remembered me because of the, they had to look at my resume, my application, they interviewed. So it was definitely worth the hassle, whether you get the scholarship or not. But all the more rewarding, of course, to have that weight lifted off your shoulders, knowing that financially you have some support.
Yes, it definitely is worth the effort on the front end for all of the reward on the back end. And it's true, college is way more enjoyable when you're not carrying the financial burden and stress on your shoulders. Yes. Lori, I have actually a few of these questions were selected from students. I have another student selected question, and that is, are some of these scholarships location dependent? So for example, if a student initially wanted to go to school in the US and they applied for the scholarship and now they want to transfer to the UK, if they transfer schools, would that impact their scholarship retainment?
I can't speak to all scholarships, but I
Yeah.
think it's a general, I believe the answer is they should be transferable. I mean,
Okay.
we've had a student come in, she went to the U of T, she got accepted at the U of T. Within the first semester, she realized, you know what, this was probably not the right social setting for me. We worked with this student and had no problems, because guess what? You want these students to succeed. You don't want them to fail. And if they're in a university where they are not comfortable, they're not going to succeed. So we actually worked with the student. We identified one of her other choices. She'd been accepted at multiple universities. We worked and found that university that was more suitable to her, and she transferred out. So we didn't have a problem moving that student from a Canadian university to a US university, nor would we have had an issue if they had chosen a UK university. I think it is really more incumbent upon, and sometimes determined upon, should they change their major. That's what you have to look at. Is that scholarship transferable? I think geographically, most scholarship awardees will not have an issue. Where I think we might have to have a conversation is if you've decided to choose or to change your major.
That's really good distinction. Okay, phenomenal. All right, last question until we go into our final words of encouragement. Ryan, so we've been talking about college, and I never want to miss an opportunity just to big up how amazing college is. Some of our students are really excited about college, but some of them don't really have a sense of what college life is like beyond the academics. And there may be a sense of anticipating that college is a continuation of high school. And we've been really trying to illustrate just the excitement, the thrill, the cultural exposure, just how lively and invigorated college life can be, right? So whenever I have guests that have recently graduated from college, I like for them just to share what have been some of your highlights during your collegiate experience that you would just kind of share with high school students to say, no, you really want to go to college. You don't want to miss out on this.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I would say is it varies based on where you are, right? So talk to some people that you know who have been to university in, for example, the US versus Canada versus the UK, the Caribbean, other places, because it's obviously going to be shaped by your environment and the culture and whatever country you're in. So get a sense of what types of colleges and universities are out there. And then you have things like HBCUs, right? So the experience is going to vary. But I think one thing that's common amongst all universities is, you're going to end up with some lifelong friendships. You're going to have opportunities for exposure, for new learnings beyond the academic degree. Each college is going to have clubs and societies and organizations. It's a chance to explore. Just the degree, you're finding yourself, you're developing yourself independently. You're spending some time away from home in many cases, and away from family and loved ones. So it's really a chance to be with yourself, and really find out who you are and enjoy that sort of experience, and that especially that crucial age, when you're in your 20s and you're out there learning about the world. I did a lot of traveling when I was in university. I was in England, so it was very easy to travel around Europe, and I even traveled, Western Africa, different places, in the south of Europe. So it was definitely a wonderful, enjoyable experience. And I would say to everyone, make the most of it. It's not just about the degree. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do, but develop those relationships, develop those key contacts, go out and try different and new things, and you're gonna love it.
I agree. Ryan, if I might add, it's been a very long time since I've been to university, obviously. But to Ryan's point, look at where you think you're going to fit, right? Look at what you're looking for. Whether it's a very small university, I chose one that was actually quite small. It only had 5,000 students, but it was a high international student population, which was what I was looking for. I needed small because I was coming from Bermuda, but I liked the diversity of the fact that there were European students here, there were students from the islands. Look to what makes you comfortable, because when you're comfortable in your surroundings, you're going to study and learn better, right? So very important, Ryan. I think, as you also pointed out, this is a great opportunity to learn and to learn you and to broaden yourself. So look for that university or college that will deliver that for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful counsel. And so, final words of encouragement. What would you say to students who are embarking upon the process of considering applying for scholarships, considering moving into college or university applications? What would be your final words just to commission to them?
Start now. It's never too early. If you're in S1, start thinking about where you want to be in S3 and S4 as far as prepared for the application process. You can start now looking at what career path you're considering so that you can align your education toward it, right? Picking the right courses, making sure you've got those right classes under your belt so that when it comes to that time to apply, you're not having to then figure out, well, what am I missing, right? So that's primary, I think. You're at the perfect stage in S1 to start the planning process. Use it, because as you said, those years, they go by quickly. So do that. And number two, I think breathe. It's this isn't a sprint, right? Like take your time, breathe. You're going to get there. Ask for help, ask for questions, ask for guidance, just ask.
Start now, breathe. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori. And what about you, Ryan?
I mean, I definitely echo everything Lori said. And I would also just affirm, you won't regret it. Whether you win or lose, get the scholarship or not, go through the process, enjoy that experience, because looking back years later, regardless, you're not going to regret it. You're going to be happy that you did it, even if it was just to learn a bit more about yourself. And I definitely agree with what Lori mentioned about having a plan or starting early, started to map out what that path might look like. But even if you don't know, have a general sense of direction. You don't have to necessarily know each step of the way when it comes to how this experience is going to play out. But have a general idea of what you want to do and what you care about and where you want to go. And that way you can enjoy the journey. Obviously, for the scholarship process, you need to have your ducks in a row and you need to know what's required. But when it comes to the overall experience, just keep it in context, right? Like, this is an opportunity for you to learn about yourself, to develop further. It's enjoyable, when you really look back, you'll be happy that you did it. So just make the most of it, enjoy the journey. Don't stress too much, because it's all going to be fine. Just do what you have to do, and you won't regret that experience. So soak it all in.
Yes, enjoy the journey. Boy, what a rich conversation. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you so much, Lori, for making yourself available to our students and the families that we serve here at the Berkeley Institute. I believe this is just the first of many conversations. At some point, I'd love to have you on campus just to engage our young people. So look out for email from me in the future.
Anytime.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you. This is just the beginning. And so I thank you for your time and your expertise and for you sharing your experiences. Boy, this has been a rich conversation, and I think that it will result in scholarship yeses and the capacity to cope with scholarship no's, right?
Exactly.
To give ourselves grace and patience, and not to perceive ourselves as failure when we don't get the result that we're looking for. So again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if this is coming to you via email, I'll be providing you with some crucial websites like the Bermuda Scholarship website that Lori was mentioning, so that you can have some tools to utilize when the application process starts in January. No matter what your year level is, this will be more so for S4s that can start applying, right? And we get to that January application start date. But this information is for everyone, whether you are an S1 or S4. Let's get started. All right. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye.